Welcome everyone to the 28th CSC meeting for Arvin, Lamont. I do see a couple folks on an iPhone. If you could please unmute and let us know who you are, we'd really appreciate it. Bianca, you have a question?
Hello?
Hi Bianca, we can hear you.
I was gonna add that we're here in the bus coming from Sacramento, so I do have quite a few folks around here. Do I just put it in the chat who I have here?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Bianca, as always. Okay, well, we see that it is 5 o'clock and we want to make sure that we are very respectful of everyone's time. So we want to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to tonight's 28th Community Steering Committee for the Arvin Lamont area. As you know, before we officially kick off the meeting, we want to start with some logistics to ensure accessibility for everyone who's attending tonight's meeting. Tonight, we do have simultaneous interpretation available as always. If you are interested in accessing the language interpretation in your Zoom controls, you can click interpretation. It's located at the bottom of your screen. And I know sometimes it's hard to see, so you need to maximize the Zoom link so that you can see the language option. You're going to click the language that you would like to hear, and you're going to select either English or Spanish so that you can listen to tonight's presentation all in English or all in Spanish. In addition, if you are using the Zoom app, you can also select the language interpretation by selecting the 3 little dots that are located on the Zoom controls, as indicated here on the screen with 3 dots. If you click the language interpretation from the menu and select the language that you would like to hear, you then choose English or Spanish. At this time, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Tania to review the instructions in Spanish.
Thank you very much. Buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos nuevamente. Nada más este es un recordatorio de que tenemos la interpretación disponible para que ustedes puedan escuchar la reunión en español. Si usted ingresó con una computadora, va a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Por favor, selecciónelo y seleccione el canal de español. Y también puede seleccionar silenciar el audio original para que solo escuche una voz a la vez. Si usted está utilizando un teléfono móvil, una tableta o cualquier otro dispositivo móvil, va a tocar su pantalla, va a buscar los 3 puntitos que aparecen usualmente en la parte de abajo donde diga más o more, va a seleccionar donde dice interpretación de idioma, después seleccione el canal de español, silenciar el audio original y por último el botón que diga done, listo o finalizado. Usualmente está en la parte de arriba, es un botón azul y ya con esto va a poder escuchar la reunión completamente en español. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tania. And as a reminder for everyone, we do record our CSC meetings and they are streaming live on YouTube. So you should have gotten an indication that that is available and it is being streamed. So for now, we're going to go ahead and get started. And one more logistics things to cover before we go into today's conversation. So please do unmute yourself or mute yourself and make sure your full name and organization are showing on your screen name. We do have a specific nomenclature that we'd like for you to follow. That is, we'd like to make sure that if you are a CSC member, that your naming is indicated on your Zoom little page so that we can see your first name followed by your last name. If you are a resident, you can put an R and then have your first name and last name. We do want to make sure that we collect attendance. So for example, I'm still seeing someone who is signed in tonight with an iPhone. I'd really love to be able to know who that is. You will see one of us on our team reach out to you directly via direct message on the chat if you do not change your name. And in addition to that, we will be changing folks' name as they arrive so that we can have adequate representation of who is here tonight. For all other participants, if you could please put your first name and last name and affiliation. So for example, our colleagues from the Air District, if you can put an AD to indicate Air District. If you are here representing CARB, you would put CARB. We are seeing our Cal Gem folks here tonight. You've already done that. Thank you so much. And of course, these are public meetings. So if you are here representing a public member from the community, please do add that P to your name so that we can be sure to call on you when we get to public comment. As always, we do ask that you stay on mute unless you are speaking or if you're planning to speak. If you have dialed in using your phone and not using the app for Zoom, you do need to select *6 to unmute. We do ask that you raise your hand when you do have a question. So for example, for tonight, we have a very lengthy presentation and a lot of discussion that's coming. So we imagine that there's going to be a lot of questions. You raising or using the hand feature allows us to make sure that we count everyone and we're allowing adequate time for Q&A or questions and answers. In addition to that, as many of you know, folks that are here representing the community can participate in the stipend program. So if you are a resident and you are active in the stipend program, we do ask that you stay for at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for the stipend. So that's roughly about 90 minutes or 2 hours. We do ask that you make sure that your name is changed so that we can take attendance, as previously mentioned. In addition to that, this should feel very familiar to those of you who attend our meetings. I do see some familiar faces, but just want to take a moment to remind you that in order for us to have a productive discussion and respectful dialogue, we do ask that you all help us together achieve our meeting goals. And that is that we focus on solutions, we focus on opportunities, and a productive dialogue, that we let everyone participate. And that sometimes means that you have to step up or you might have to step back, depending on if you're someone that talks a lot or talks very little, that you're civil and respectful. We already know that. I see Mario shaking his head. That's not me, maybe. That it's okay to disagree and that you are respectful and empathetic, and that we focus on, making sure that we're trying to stay on point and on time. But we do know that, some conversations have really rich dialogue, and this is your meeting. So that means if we want to continue the conversation and have more dialogue, we can definitely ask for that. And therefore, we're attacking the problem, not the person. So we're respectfully challenging ideas or outcomes, and we're seeking common ground. All right, and for today's agenda, as you can see here, we're swiftly moving through the agenda items, and we're going to start off today by reviewing some action items. Then we have really the major chunk of today's meeting is the CERT measure 5D, which is addressing impacts from oil wells in the community. This is going to be really the center of today's dialogue, so we do expect folks to have a lot of questions. And then we're going to talk about some of the next steps on CERT progress. And then, of course, as always, we do allocate time for general updates. We call these standing updates, the time for the CSC to really get updates from all of the agencies that are working on things that impact the AB 617 boundary for the Arvin Lamont community. Mario, I do see your hand raised.
Yeah, I would like to see more of our members talk about, what's going on, because I noticed that lately we've been having less members talking about, the problems that we have. And I would like to see them, talk a little bit more, get new members to speak out. That's
I love that positive encouragement, Mario. Absolutely noted. Definitely, this is a meeting for the community, guided by the community. So we definitely want to make sure that we make space for that.
Yeah, so, I know I talk a lot. But I got a lot to say, But
of course, yeah, and we're always here to hear from you.
Yeah, I would love to see our members speak out and maybe get better ideas what's going on.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. And as your facilitator, we'll be sure, my colleague and I, Liz, to, make sure that we have tactics to increase that participation, especially for today. So thank you for bringing up that great point, Mario. I really appreciate it. So now at this time, I'd like to officially kick off the meeting by welcoming everyone and passing it to our community co-host. I'm scanning the room for Cesar. Cesar, any opening remarks that you'd like to add? Bianca, any opening remarks?
Yeah, hi, this is Cesar. Sorry, I'm driving back from Sacramento. And there's a lot of other community members from Arvin and Lamont and even Shafter that came down here and did some advocacy. So I just want to, say congratulations to those folks that were able to come out here and participating in this and thank them for their dedication.
Thank you so much for that, Cesar. That is a nice complimentary response to what Mario has brought up. Love seeing all the activism and folks attending the Sacramento meetings. Now I'm going to pass it to our Air District. I see Jessica and Ryan are here tonight. If you'd like to add any, actually, did Bianca get cut off?
She
Bianca's not
put
on
in
my
the chat. She
Okay.
shared in the chat that she's using her phone to share with all the folks she's traveling with and can't speak.
Okay, thank you for that, Jess. Take it
Absolutely.
away.
Yeah, so I want to welcome you all and just really thank you all. This agenda and especially the content and the presentation that, as Dr. Ramos mentioned, will be the bulk of our meeting today, was really driven by all of the input you all had leading up to the meeting, including at previous CSC meetings and of course at the open agenda setting meeting that we had. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank our agency partners for showing up and really listening to you all. And then of course, I want to thank our co-leads who did some more work sort of after the agenda setting meeting to make sure that the agencies, including the district, was held responsible and to our word to all of the information that you all wanted to hear. So I just want to thank everyone for the interagency collaboration, and I really look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Jessica. And with that said, we'll get right to it. And so we're going to start with our reviewing the action items tracker. So as you all know, it's been well over a year and a half that we've been introducing this action item tracker, where during each of these meetings, the community requests an action item be noted, and it allows for the Air District to track all of the requests and to provide transparency on progress towards implementing those actions. As you listen to the update of the action item tracker, love for the community to speak up if you see that something was missed, if we need more context. These really are a way for us to communicate with everyone where we're at in the implementation of AB 617 and some other requests that you all have about some of the things that are impacting the Arvin Lamont area. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to Jessica to give us an overview of how we're doing on implementing some of these action items.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. So yes, as a reminder that many of the action items I'm talking about tonight, we had a very robust discussion last meeting. So many of them are from just the last meeting we had. The first one was there was a discussion. Mario brought up a really unique and interesting outreach opportunity in talking about billboards, which just reminded all of us that we need to have an ongoing discussion and listening to community voices about how to do better outreach. So we definitely want to work together and perhaps bring it to an upcoming meeting where we talk about these ideas, but then also the district comes and talks about some solutions we've already heard from you all and what those next steps are. So that was our response to action item 27.1. This one, if you recall, last meeting we talked about with the Fresca team, which was a team doing research and seeking participation from folks in your community to work with the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. So really to understand the health impacts of pollution on folks living in your community. So we shared the application information and posted it to our website as a follow-up, which we promised to do last time. Also, Cesar is very involved in that, and you can continue to reach out to him if you have any questions or want to be involved. Our next one of the updates that we had for you all was really exciting. We made a lot of progress last meeting on our sidewalk paving discussion. It's not 100%, but it was about 50% of the decisions that needed to be made. We all collectively agreed to and built consensus around. One of the next steps we asked you all to work with us on, or just sort of let you know that we needed to work on, was getting CARB approval. And we got that pretty soon after the meeting to move forward with funding these projects. One of the next steps is to work with the district governing board. I shared at the agenda setting meeting, we thought that would be at this last meeting, but we will inform you as soon as we do take it to our governing board. We'll let you all know, because of course that is just another public opportunity to share your thoughts and to share your support for that moving forward. Oh, and of course, sorry, I failed to mention, but you can keep scrolling, Eric, that of course, as I said, that it was 50% done, meaning we still have a discussion, right, about Arvin. So I just wanted you to all know that's still on our minds. It's still here as a pending item. So we're looking forward to that. But I do see a question, Gustavo, I'm happy to pause about that particular item.
Yeah, yes, clarifying question. You mentioned that this project was already approved by CARB, and the only pending approval is the Air District?
Right. So we are still working with the county and then of course the city to like finalize all the details of the project. CARB, just as a reminder for folks, because it's good to pause and remind us all, has to approve certain types of projects if they were not in like the original vision for AB 617. And so this was one of them. So we did get that approval. But yes, the governing board is just another step. And we expect that in the next few months. That doesn't really actually delay us much, because in the meantime, we still have to work out the details with the county and the city anyway.
And just one more piece. I think the last, substantial conversation we had around that, it was all the streets that we talk about, the community of Arvin, and it was also mentioned that the Comanche road in Arvin, I think there is support. I didn't hear any opposition from other members from Arvin. But there is we also submitted some pictures and street names and all of that.
Yes.
I don't know if that's clear. Like what are if all of the streets that we submitted are being considered, or
Yes.
Is that going to change? Just clarifying question.
Great question, Gustavo. And I'm happy to drop in the chat a reminder of the 4 that we agreed upon and are moving forward on are not going to change. And those are all in the Lamont area and through the county. We have yet to come to consensus, although we definitely know there's lots of input already on the Arvin paving projects. And we definitely know, to your point, that Comanche is like the #1. There are still some logistics, including understanding the cost of those projects. So we want to make sure that you all have the cost information in front of you before you all help support which projects we want to move forward with, just like we did with the county projects. But that is a good reminder, Gustavo, that there is still some decisions to be made. And we will continue to, when you all and when the city is ready, bring it to an upcoming meeting, of course, asking you all, what we want to talk about at the agenda setting meetings, but we'll be ready for that whenever the city has all of that information.
Just one last comment. Highway 223 and Walnut intersection, I think that's also something that all the residents of Arvin want to see it happening. And I think part of our prior discussion was that I think Caltrans is have jurisdiction on that, and I think I'm very interested in what are the next steps. I think Caltrans say that someone needs to submit a request, and I think it will be great if between meetings we can find, what are the next steps that we as community or committee members can do to keep that moving, because I think Comanche and that intersection for sure was identified by the Arvin residents And, and the other streets, a lot of streets, a lot of needs, I don't know how far we can go, but definitely I think those areas are identifying, especially with all the new development in Arvin, in that area, the new college and everything. Walnut and 223 is going to become a very, very key, intersection to improve safety and to encourage and allow less miles travel and all of that. So if you can guide us, and if there are some steps that we as community can do to advance that, just let us know, and we will try to organize between the community and the steering committee.
Thank you so much. And I'll just ask that Harder write that as an action item for the district to follow up on that particular request. Thank you, Gustavo. All right, Eric, I think scrolling to the next one. I do have an update for this one. This is excellent. So an update as of today. So as you recall, we were talking about a couple of the bigger air monitoring pieces of equipment we were trying to deploy in the community. And one of them was around the Arvin High School area. And because of the size, the electricity, and some of the safety logistics, placing the big air monitoring trailer that collects a bunch of different pollutants in the area that everyone agreed wanted kind of within the Arvin community was just a little bit of a heavier lift. But we are pleased to announce that the Arvin Community Services District facility is ready to approve. They actually, by Monday, we should get a final approval from their board to start work on deploying the trailer there. So we're really, really excited to announce that. And that's the update we have today, but of course, we'll continue to update you. We won't even wait till next meeting. If something happens, if we find out that that goes through on Monday, we'll definitely send an email to you all to let you know. And I want to just thank everyone. I know a lot of different folks gave us a lot of different ideas, and it's because of all the different concepts that we arrived at this solution. So thank you all. And then several of you, hopefully, I know we're still working with one person. We ran into a little bit of an issue, but we got new laptops for folks, and we are so grateful to see that we can see Mario without a bunch of green lines going across his face. And we're so grateful to hear and be able to interact with those of you that got new laptops. So of course, if you do have a district device and you ever run into an issue, please let us know. We will work with our IT team and get you a new device. And then finally, this was from a couple of meetings ago, and we're pleased to announce, hopefully you all got the invitation. We are having an official onboarding session for our new folks, although I know we have some joining us already tonight, for the new residents that we recruited through you all. That will be next Monday from 4:30 to 6:30. We are requiring the new folks because it is for them, but CSC members are welcome, and we will provide space for current CSC members to interact with the new folks and maybe even share a little bit of their perspective. So definitely, it is not a required meeting for the CSC. It is an optional meeting. But if you want to come and share space with the new folks that we're onboarding, Monday night is the night to do so. And with that, I will stop, but I'm happy to take any other questions before I pass it back to Amy. Mariela.
Hi, everyone. And just so folks know, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Mariela. I'm with Leadership Council, and I'm here in place of Sandra and Emma, who couldn't make it. And they asked me to ask if you all have any updates on, I think it's item 26.8 related to the black smoke, like reports analysis.
Oh, this was it was a flaring event, I believe, and I think we were following up on that, and we wanted to talk to the community. Let me check with folks. I know that we were following up, and we ended up, I think, following our typical compliance procedures. We went out there, we talked with the facility, and so I will follow up with folks right now. We also, part of our update tonight, if we are able to get to it, is just in general talking about the notices of violation and following up with oil and gas facilities. But I'm noting that right now, Mariela, and whether it's before the end of this meeting tonight or in a follow-up email, we'll get that conclusion to everyone.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Not seeing any more questions, but really glad, Mariela, that question was asked, because it illustrates how some of the action items are really complex and they require collaboration across multiple agencies and a lot of follow-up with one-on-one individuals who are requesting the action item, and then really looking at who the agencies involved are and trying to make progress on that action item might take more than a month. So you will often see an action item that we report on when there's progress on it. And if we ever do not report on something, like Mariela just reminded us, it's important that you all ask for accountability and transparency. We're always happy to provide those updates. In addition to that, stay tuned for when updates do get released via email, as the Air District is continuously sending information via email to keep you all in the loop on what's happening. So thank you all for that comprehensive update. Now we're going to transition to the major section for tonight's meeting. So as you all know, based on your input and the implementation of the CERT measure 5D, we are going to hear about the recent collaboration and progress on the implementation of this CERT, including soliciting feedback on efforts to address the potential impacts of nearby wells within this AB 617 boundary. And as we've heard directly from CSC members and residents, especially at the last agenda setting meeting, we know that it's really important for you all to receive materials well in advance to ensure that you have a better understanding of which government agencies are involved and what are their corresponding jurisdictions, so that you can better understand how to reach out to them and for what types of things to reach out to each of the agencies. And we also know that we have agreed on a common best practice of ensuring that anytime we have a presentation of new materials, that you receive the materials and maybe some sort of fact sheet or some sort of general informational package at least 1 week in advance. And we just want to acknowledge that for today's meeting, that promise was definitely broken, and that's indicative of how busy everyone is, right? So folks that are working on today's presentation have a lot going on. Everybody has a lot going on. So there was a bottleneck in trying to get all materials out, but we do know that materials are posted now, they're live on the website, and they will be coming via hard copies soon. So I just want to say that because I know this is a topic that the CSC wants to discuss, and you will likely have a lot of questions. So I want to make sure that folks are anticipating a dense conversation. A lot of information is going to be coming at us, but want to make sure that you all raise your hands, get your questions asked. And it might very well be that the CSC would like to continue this topic at the next meeting because we haven't finished unpacking the conversation today. Also want to acknowledge that we heard loud and clear that there will be a subcommittee that will be launching that will allow CSC members and public agencies to be part of that conversation. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to, I see Courtney is here from CalGEM to kick us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate it. I'm going to invite my colleague Ava to screen share. As Amy mentioned, I'm Courtney Smith. I am the Chief Deputy of Programs at CalGEM, which stands for the California Geologic Energy Management Division. And first, let me just say, we're very glad to be here with you guys today. We're really looking forward to sharing with you some updates on efforts that our division has underway that aligns with the commitment that we made as part of your community emissions reduction plan. And really importantly, we're looking forward to the discussion and to be able to get feedback from you all to inform these efforts. And really appreciate your understanding. We have the opportunity to get some excellent guidance at agenda setting and also from Bianca and Cesar on what we can present that's really important to you all. And it's a lot. So I appreciate your understanding in terms of being able to get you materials in a timely fashion. I also think that you'll see, and I think Amy alluded to this, that we can spend a lot of time on each of these efforts. And so I just wanted to acknowledge at the top that today's presentation really aims to provide a high-level overview, and we fully expect and look forward to continuing the conversation with you all. And it sounds like there is going to be a subcommittee focused on this, so we really look forward to working with you guys. In addition, our division does tend to use a lot of technical terms. I mean, they're terms that I'm even still learning. So we did provide a bit of a cheat sheet with key terms and explanations of what those are. They're translated in Spanish, but certainly if folks have clarifying questions, please don't hesitate. Even I am still learning some of these terms. To start, if we could go to the next slide, Ava, I thought just give you an overview of what we're planning to cover today. So to start, we'd first like to share who CalGEM is and what we do. We then really want to be able to center folks around the commitment our division has made as part of the emissions reduction plan. We also want to be able to provide everyone some context regarding oil and well production activities in your community. So we'll talk about the wells that are in your community. And that's really going to set the stage for us to be able to share with you updates on a few key efforts that we have that really aim to identify and address wells of concern in the community. This includes our state abandonment program. It includes our inspection program for this part of the state. And as part of that effort, we want to share with you all a joint inspection plan that we, CalGEM, as well as our colleagues at the Air Resources Board and the Air District are proposing. And we really want to get your feedback on that joint inspection effort. So with that, maybe we can move to the next slide and jump right in because there is a lot to cover. So broadly, CalGEM is a division. It's the state, a state entity that really has the regulatory authority over the drilling, operation, and the permanent closure of wells within the oil, gas, and geothermal industries within California. And our mission is to carry out that authority in a manner that focuses on prioritizing protecting public health, safety, and the environment. We can go to the next slide. We'll remind folks of the measure identified in the Arvin Lamont Community Emissions Reduction Plan. So specifically, I know Amy referenced it, it's measure 5D. Really, that measure, as you all know, is really focused on addressing impacts from idle, orphaned, and abandoned oil wells in the community boundary. And in response to that measure, CalGEM committed to working with the steering committee and the Air District to be able to identify, assess, prioritize, and address compliance issues with wells. So we're really looking forward to this conversation today that's really focused on our efforts to try to do just that. All right, let's go to the next slide. And so this was one of the great recommendations by Cesar and Bianca. We thought it would be helpful to know, for you all to know, a snapshot of oil and gas wells in your community. So we looked within the Arvin Lamont 617 boundary that you all developed. And within that boundary, there are a total of 544 oil and gas wells in the community. Now, the vast majority of these wells, or I should say the majority of these wells, 377, are wells that we've characterized as plugged and abandoned, which is a kind of technical term, but it basically means that these wells have been permanently sealed to be able to prevent emissions or leaks into the air or water. In addition, there are 47 wells that are characterized as active. And what we mean by active is that they're actively being used for oil and gas production, or they haven't been used for a short time, under 2 years. There's also 118 idle wells. So these are wells that have been idle, meaning they have not been used for production for 2 years or more. So that's kind of the delineation that we use between idle and active. And lastly, there are 2 wells that have been permitted, but that have not yet been drilled yet. So if we go to the next slide, you will see a map of those wells that I just described. So that way you can have a visual representation of where they're located. It's a lot. So let's go to the next slide. This is a map of wells that CalGEM has identified. So this is a subset of those ones I just went over that we've identified as being wells that are likely orphan wells. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means. So this means that for these wells, we have some evidence that suggests that these wells may be deserted, meaning there's no longer a current or a prior operator that's viable, that they have the financial resources to cover the cost of the permanent sealing, the plugging and abandonment of the well. So the reason that they're called likely orphan wells is because we as a division have a lengthy administrative process that we have to go through in order to ensure that, in fact, there is no operator around with the financial resources to pay. And when a well does not have a viable operator to take action to manage it, that falls to the state. So we thought it would be very helpful to talk to you all about what we're doing to address these kinds of wells that fall to the state. So before I do that, though, I see a hand up. Amy, do I take questions as I go through? Or, okay, great.
Yeah, it's really up to you, Courtney.
Okay.
I think if it's a clarifying question, it might be helpful before you move on.
By all means. Mario.
Yeah, I got this question. Like these wells, they are abandoned. They abandoned them. Who takes responsibility of those wells? The state does, or the person who owns the well? Or never know, maybe something might pop up or a spill or whatever. Even though they got plugs, they sometimes explode out.
So for wells that have been deserted and they haven't been properly sealed, we do, part of our process is to ensure that that operator cannot, in fact, take care of the problem. We also have a little bit of ability to go back to previous operators. If like a well was transferred from one operator to another, that transfer happened recently after 1996, we can go back and try to hold others accountable. But ultimately, if we can't find an operator that we can hold accountable with the financial resources to do it, it falls to the state to do it.
On the rules and regulations and the boundaries of the rules on the wells, what is it? I mean, if something goes wrong, who's gonna be responsible? That's what I want to know.
If something goes wrong with an orphan well?
Yes.
Oh, well, maybe what we can absolutely cover that now. And also I've got my colleague Rohit on here because we actually have had some instances where we've had some issues with orphan wells, as you are likely aware. And so we are able to go out and take remedial action to address that. And we have standby contractors in place to make sure that we are able to take swift action should there be, an emergency situation that needs to be addressed. I don't know, Rohit, if you wanted to add anything more to that, and you probably should introduce yourself too.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rohit Sharma, and I'm acting Chief Deputy of Operations with CalGEM. And Courtney, you're right. If there are some issues with the orphan well, the responsibility of the state to take care of, and we can, hire an emergency contractor to do that work. We don't have to wait and get the bid out. So we can quickly who can do that type of work and fix that problem right away. And we have done that in the recent past too.
And that actually might be a perfect segue because certainly if an emergency arises, we have the ability to go out, and we have, and we're doing it right now, to address issues that arise that present an emergency. And in addition to that, my colleague Robert is going to share a little more around our larger state abandonment effort. State abandonment. Oh, sorry.
I got one more question.
Okay.
Do you guys notify the people who lives around these wells? Like saying there's a lot of wells in Arvin. Do you guys notify the citizens? You know, if something
Well,
like that happens?
I'm really glad you raised that, because actually one of the things that we're hoping to get feedback from you all on is, so obviously we had a lot of leaking wells last summer, and I think that was a great opportunity for many of us to learn some lessons. And so one of the things actually that we're hoping to have, we have some discussion questions, but it sounds like we don't even have to prod the discussion. We're really hoping to get folks' feedback on what might be the best method for us to communicate with communities around what we find when we go out and actions that we take to address those situations. So I'm so glad you asked that.
That's why I want that billboard. That's why I'm asking for
Billboard,
that,
okay.
that electronic billboard. That's the reason why, like that, they could get notified, the citizens, what's really going on. A lot of information could be on that billboard, and it'll educate the citizen wherever the problem is. That's
Okay.
the reason why I want it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Mario. So we'll make sure to ask that same question when we get to your discussion question, Courtney. And I see a hand raised from Cesar. Go ahead, Cesar.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Mario said. I think, there were some leaks from oil wells last year in Bakersfield, and the response from agencies is something that I would really hope to see again, which was, knocking in the neighborhoods that were affected by the leaks, having community meetings over Zoom, and they also went and with a gas detector and made sure that the levels were safe around the houses. So I think definitely when there's leaks, I think that type of outreach should be, the priority.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cesar. You're already preempting some of the ideas we were going to offer up on our slide. So definitely jotting that down, and appreciate that. So we're going to get to that later in the presentation and have a super robust conversation. Really great to hear early thoughts on that. If we might, and if there are no more questions, I don't see any hands, but Amy, you catch me if I'm missing, because there's a lot going on my screen. I'd love to turn it over to my colleague, Robert. He's going to share with you guys at a high level, just to set the stage a little bit here. And he'll talk about this, but this is a relatively newly expanded program that we have, and we're very excited about having the ability to more systematically permanently deal with orphan wells. So, Robert, take it away.
Thank you, Courtney. Okay, I'm Robert Schopp, and I'm the State Abandonment Program Manager for CalGEM. And the objective of our program is to go out and abandon orphan wells. As Courtney said, an orphan well is a deserted well determined to have no legally responsible current or prior operator with the financial resources to cover the cost of abandoning it or permanently plugging the well. We've talked about idle wells. There's lots of idle wells in the state of California. Orphan wells are a subset of idle wells because many idle wells do have operators that are financially able to handle the cost of abandoning those wells. But orphan wells don't have that financial resources to do that. In many cases, the operator's been gone for sometimes decades and left these wells there. And these wells do pose a risk to both the public health and to the environment because they can leak oil, gases, including methane, and other air emissions such as benzene that it could be detrimental to the health of the people living near these orphan wells. So it's definitely a problem, one that we want to address. The problem has been in the past, we haven't had much funds to address that. But the good news is now is that we do have funds available. We've received $100 million from the state of California to address this issue. And we hope to get up to 165 million from the federal government and programs that they put together by the end of this year. And we also, in addition to that, do get industry funding in the range of about $5 million per year. So we have a lot of money coming in. And while this is unprecedented, it's not going to be enough to handle all the wells statewide. So because we knew that, we had to develop a prioritization method of which wells we're going to abandon. Next slide, please.
Hey, Robert, just real quick before you get deeper, I think Gustavo has his hand up.
Yeah, my question is, I think this is great news, that the state is going to be taking care of the, abandoned wells. Is there any connection with, the new trending idea of the carbon sequestration, bringing Kern County more pollution? How are those eventually going to be related, or carbon sequestration is part of taking care of the orphan wells? Any connection there with one idea or project with the other one?
There is a connection in the fact that idle wells can be used for carbon sequestration. However, we have so many idle and orphan wells, we have more than enough for at least the programs that are being discussed out there now. So we're going to have, yeah, go ahead.
Let me add to that. I would say, Gustavo, that this program is very much focused on managing and addressing legacy assets from the oil and gas industry. It is something that we have to do because we're, transitioning and production is declining. And we want to make sure that as we make that transition, we're not saddling communities in this state with wells that are hazards. There isn't a ton of a project that would be focused on sequestration. It's, we're kind of doing this regardless of whatever happens with that. So there isn't a ton of overlap. I will say, though, I am aware that as folks do consider CCS sequestration projects, one of the key requirements from the federal government is that, for them to consider their application, they have to make sure that all wells into that reservoir are properly sealed to make sure that there's containment. But that really, isn't very related to this state abandonment project.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to, express, that carbon sequestration is a huge concern for us here in Kern County because, as you say, the transition is going from oil oil exploitation, one of our biggest polluters here, and to carbon sequestration, just another bomb, and bringing pollution to Kern. Most of the residents, at least the people that we work with, we are very concerned on that. So I just want to express that I don't think the community or most of the steering committee members here, I don't want to speak for them, but several of them, I work with them on regular basis, and we are concerned about that. And I don't think we will want to support any money going to help, carbon sequestration here in Kern, because we don't think it's the best idea for our county.
I see. Yeah, this money doesn't support that. I mean, we're basically pouring, just to be simple, because that's how I think about it. We're basically pouring a bunch of cement down there to seal it permanently. That's really hard to undo and use for something else like sequestration. So we're using state money to permanently seal these wells so that way they're not leaking. So we think it's a good thing, and it would, like I said, be really challenging, I think, to leverage that for sequestration.
Yeah, if it's to protect us and not incentivize more pollution, I think we are for it.
Okay. Well, with that, let's talk about our values, Robert.
Okay, so we're talking about well abandonments here. And then as we put this program together, we wanted to have CalGEM's values, which are really in line with what the state values are for putting together a prioritization for this. So we wanted to be equitable. We want to make sure that we're doing abandonments in all the areas where oil production is occurring now or has occurred in the past. So it's not just in one place, but throughout the state. We want to address climate action, environmental protection, and the public health and safety, which basically means we want to handle wells that are leaking. Climate action, we want to limit the amount of greenhouse gases that we're putting into the air. Environmental protection, we want to prevent oil from getting into environmentally sensitive places such as lakes or rivers. And public health and safety, when we have these leaks near communities, we want to address those issues as quickly as we can. And at the same time, we want to efficiently spend the money. We want to do as many abandonments as we can with the money that we've been given. And we want to do what local communities think is important. So from cities and counties, we've been talking with them, like the meeting we're having here, to make sure we're doing the kind of programs that the cities and counties and areas really want to make sure we're addressing the wells that are out there that are of concern to these communities in California. Next slide, please. So we've put together a well prioritization method. Last year, we released the draft prioritization methodology and presented it at a methane task force meeting. We had a public workshop and then we received public comments. We received 45 verbal and written comments, which you can all see on the Department of Conservation website. With those comments, we went through all of them, and many of them we added to our prioritization method because they were well thought out. Others that were well thought out, but we didn't have the information for, we couldn't include. And some we looked at and we said, okay, well, they make sense, but not necessarily for this program. And with all that information, in February of this year, we put out our final orphan well prioritization methodology. And along with it, we have a GIS mapping tool where you can actually see where the orphan wells are in the state and can focus in on areas concerned to you. Next slide, please. And with that methodology, it's really a two-phase system. We've ranked all the wells that are potentially orphan wells using risk factors that would indicate whether the well may pose a greater risk to nearby communities or the environment. And this numbering system significantly prioritizes wells within 3,200 feet of a sensitive receptor. A sensitive receptor is a thing like a house, a school, a hospital, something where there's a lot of people that are going to be there for long periods of time during the day. So we want to address wells that are in those areas. We also want to address wells with history of leaks, wells that have had problems already. And so that we are taking the wells that are of particular concern to us because they're emitting gases or leaking oil off the well and into the community or into an environmentally sensitive area. And we're also prioritizing the protection of communities disproportionately impacted and least able to respond to environmental hazards. So we wanted to make sure that was part of our priorities. So with that numbering system, we now have a second phase where we're taking into account local priorities, like what we're doing here today, making sure we're meeting the goals of local cities and counties throughout the state. We do want to make sure that our program is going to be geographically balanced, meaning again, that it's across the state of California, that all the areas that have produced oil or are producing oil are going to get programs. And we want to make sure we do as many wells as we can with the money we have. Next slide, please. So with all that information, we've had local government meetings to identify local priorities. We've met with other groups, like we're doing here today, and we're putting together a draft expenditure plan that's going to tentatively be released on June 27th at the Methane Task Force meeting. This plan will include the proposed potential early state abandonment projects for consideration of the public. And when we do that, we'd like to hear from you about that. You can make your comments at the Methane Task Force meeting, but also you can make your comments now and after that meeting at our email address, calgemorphanwells@conservation.ca.gov. And we do really want to hear from you. We read all the emails that are sent in and we take them all into consideration. So if you have ideas or you have concerns or you want us to know about something, please do use this email address because we will look at it and address it. So please, we do want to hear your feedback today and into the future. And with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Deputy Chief, Rohit Sharma.
Thank you, Robert. Again, my name is Rohit Sharma, and I'm an acting Chief Deputy of Operations with CalGEM. I'm going to talk about CalGEM's Central District's inspection program, which cover communities of Arvin and Lamont. Inspections are a very important part of CalGEM's day-to-day work. Our inspectors, they go out daily to witness the test and inspections, wells, leases, and facilities. During the field inspection, if we encounter a violation, we then issue a notice of violations to the operator and then conduct a re-inspection after the violation has been corrected. The focus of these inspections is to protect the health, public health and environment. So what we look for when we go out to do the well inspection, there are a number of things that we look for in a well, like well sign that needs to have a well name, number, lease name, name and emergency phone number of the operator. Whether there is a refuse or waste present around the well, if the well is accessible, well should not be open to the surface. Whether weeds are present that could pose a fire hazard, whether the well cellar is free of fluid and whether it is covered, if the urban well site is adequately enclosed. The well should also not be leaking, and our inspector check all the wellhead components like pipings and valves. Next slide, please. So here is a overview of Central District's engineering field. Inland has around 2,808 active leases, over 81,000 wells that are active, idle, and permitted wells. We also have over 7,000 tanks and vessels. Currently, there are 27 field staff who carried out all of these environmental inspections in the Central District. And currently there are 12 vacancies in the field engineering team. So our goal is to inspect all leases, wells, facilities every 3 to 4 years. But we have a very limited resources, so the inspection prioritization is developed in the Central District. The priority is given to the urban areas, and CalGEM's Central District plans to inspect all critical and environmental sensitive wells and facilities yearly. Next slide, please. So in 2022, we have performed over 59,000 inspections in the Central District, out of which over 32,000 were environmental inspections. And this includes 2,144 critical wells that are located within 100 feet of community and environmental sensitive areas. We also send 589 violations to the operators for these wells. Next slide, please. So Central District plan again to inspect all 2,200 critical and environmental sensitive wells in urban areas, and respond to any complaints from the public. This includes communities of Arvin and Lamont. Next slide. So again, this is a map of Arvin and Lamont community boundary, and the green dots on the map represents the well locations within and close to the community areas. And I will hand over to Matthew Biffelbun, our
I'm sorry,
enforcement chief.
before we do, I just wanted to flag Gustavo has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think here locally, you know, from the community and the organizations, we have very few, if I can say few, maybe one or two, you know, members of the community and organizations that went to trainings and maybe how learn how to identify the, you know, the abandoned wells and all of that. Is it possible maybe now you can at least give us some tips on how can we, the regular residents that have no clue, you know, how those look. I don't know if you can do it now, but just at least giving us an idea, you know, how those wells look that we can, you know, see and potentially, you know, being able to report to your agency for inspection. Because I see wells, but I don't know which one are operating or not operating. I don't know if you can do that now.
Yeah, definitely. We can work with our, you know, programs and see if we can do a, you know, high level training on how to, you know, look for any. We don't want community to, you know, do the, you know, actively go there and do something on the wells, but you will be able to identify if there is a, you know, any leakage of the wells. So definitely there can be a, you know, training that can be done.
And I think too, Rohit, maybe just as a starter, we do have the last two slides in our presentation. Gustavo gives some high level guidance on like, if you hear something, if you see something, like what you do, and then also how to make a community complaint. So we can absolutely go over that today. And if you would like additional conversation around that, as Rohit mentioned, we're happy to do that. We absolutely want to give you guys the tools to know when to flag if there is a concern. You know, as Rohit mentioned, we have a lot, they're doing a lot of inspections, they're busy, but there are also a lot of wells. And so we recognize that our inspection program can't catch everything at all times, right? Because as we've learned with the wells that were leaking last year, sometimes you fix it and it's not enough and you have to go back, right? Or it'll be fixed for a little while and then it will, you know, start leaking again. So, you know, making sure that you guys are knowledgeable around how to help us, we're happy to have that conversation. And of course, if you guys have serious, like, you know, concerns around your health or safety, we want to make sure we're really clear on what you can do. So we'll talk a little bit about that and happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, that would be great because I think the information you are sharing is obviously critical to us, you know, especially, you know, for 617 that we're trying to reduce the pollution in our community. And if there is a way we can help, you know, in keeping pollution under control, I think it would be great for us, you know, to be able to help.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And Courtney, I want to just make you all aware for these meetings, what we typically do is track requests from the community and make them an official action item for public record. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and request this and we'll make sure that you get follow-up so that we can have that training. And I also want to take just a slight pause because we have a lot of questions in the chat, Courtney.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I can read them out loud for you all. So the first one is, and I see you already put your email in there. So if your team could please share your email for the CalGEM team presenters, that would be great. We also have a resident several residents who are here today who are part of the Shafter AB 617. So they're curious if you all have any plans to give a similar presentation with the Shafter AB 617 boundary.
We would welcome that.
Okay, great, thank you. So we will add that as a second agenda action item. And then another question from Bianca is whether or not there's a target of a number of orphan wells. Is it by community or is it section of California? Since, as you mentioned, there's so many to address, like, well, how do you all set up targets and know that you're, you know, making progress on the targets and the milestones that you all set for yourselves?
Great question. So to answer that one thing that it's helpful to know is that the cost of permanently sealing a well, it varies really greatly, depending on what the well might look like, where it's located. Sometimes there's stuff stuck in it. So it's very challenging for us to be able to estimate exactly how many we can get done with the money we have. I think that's also why it's going to be so important for us, and as Robert laid out, to really focus first and foremost on wells that pose the greatest risk, right? Like that's why we're doing this, right? So that way communities are safe. So it's why we went through that really robust process to create an approach to make sure we're getting wells that we have a history of leaks, they're near communities, they're in disadvantaged communities. So that's really the focus, is it's a risk-based approach. And one of the things too, I know Robert mentioned this, but I wanted to just elevate it, is our next step here is to be able to share with you all what we're proposing as a first set of potential state abandonment projects. That's going to be articulated in the draft expenditure plan that Robert mentioned we're aiming to release publicly end of June. So I know, Bianca, it looks like you had some additional questions around like the budget, what we're planning to clean up. That is going to be the first time we really lay out, hey, these are the early projects based on our risk assessment and community feedback. These are the ones that we want to start with. It will not be a suite of projects for all of the money. It's going to be a first early set. And then we plan to be successful there, and then, you know, start to think about what that next group of projects is. Part of that approach is because it takes a lot of, we want to make sure that we've got the capacity internally to do it right, to manage contracts, and, you know, make sure that we've got the workforce that can do it and rig availability. But I just really wanted to elevate for you in particular, Bianca, because you asked the question, that this draft expenditure plan we're planning to release is meant to share with everyone for the first time what our proposed approach is and what those early projects are. So it's going to be a really great opportunity. And I keep talking about it because I really want you to weigh in on it. Great opportunity for you to let us know if we're on the right track.
Thank you so much, Courtney. And I just see one last thread of comments and questions from Christine, who's here as a representative of the city of Arvin. So she's interested in knowing if you could please share the link for where folks can share public comment for this last iteration of your work. I know you mentioned it earlier. Absolutely. And are there any wells that have been identified in Arvin and Lamont that you can share information about? And there's some comments about several ones that are of concern for the city of Arvin, especially given that there's an incoming city college in the area and planned retail area.
Okay, there's a lot there. Yes, we absolutely, and maybe, I don't know, I welcome your guidance, Amy, on how best to do this. I know folks are wanting individual email addresses, and we do also have like systems set up where folks can provide community complaints, and we are able to dispatch that. How best can we give all of that information out in a way that's
That's
easy?
a really good point, Courtney. I'm wondering if what we could have you all do is send an email with just exactly that triage approach of like who would email for what, and and to the air district. And then the air district sends out these emails that go to all of the residents and folks that are on the listserv. That way they can have it all packaged and you don't have to worry about sending multiple things right now on the chat.
Perfect. That's helpful because I know that we've got a lot to share and I don't want to miss it. So that's a great idea.
Love that. Great. Thank you for that. And I see Mario, you have your hand up. Go ahead before we transition.
Yeah, I just got this question. Saying there's a complaint about a well that's leaking or something. Do you have to notify the owner of that oil thing? Or do you guys just go over there because the complaint is there and you guys check it out real quick?
We do both. Whenever we get the information on any incident related to the oil and gas, we immediately let the operator know if they don't know already, and then we dispatch our inspectors to go to the site and progress of the cleanup, and we also do the inspections after the cleanup has been done, and operators are required to report that to Cal OES if it's a reportable spill or incident, and after this is completed, the cleanup is done, we contact the OES so that the community knows that it's all been done.
Okay. If it's an abandoned oil place, the same thing?
It's the same thing. If the operator is available, yeah, we work with the operator, and the operator is required to fix that well. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Should we go to Mariela?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay.
Maria.
Thank you. Okay, I have a couple of questions. So for slide 5, the numbers presented on slide 5 for Arvin Lamont, would we be able to have similar numbers like those, but specific to Fuller Acres? And then similar to the maps, would we be able to have like a visual presentation just like we have for Lamont and Arvin for Fuller Acres, where you have kind of like that shading? That's my first question. And then my second question is, would you all then recommend that if we are doing advocacy for the prioritization of wells within the AB 617 community, would it be then appropriate to follow, I think, was it Robert who gave that part of the presentation on what has been done thus far and the opportunity to make comment?
Yeah, both really great points. So in terms of well count and maps, like a GIS map of Fuller Acres, I don't see why we can't do that. I think that's very doable. So we can put that down, Amy, as a to-do. Okay.
Can I just jump in really quickly, Courtney? Because I think maybe just in terms of Fuller Acres is, you did just, maybe you guys can help wait. The Arvin/Lamont map included the AB 617 boundary, the entire boundary, not just Arvin and Lamont. So it did include anything that was encompassed in that boundary, which does include Fuller Acres.
Oh, is that what you were looking for, Mariela? Or are you looking for just like a subset of Fuller Acres?
Yeah, I understand what Jessica just clarified. I meant what you just.
Okay, you want just like that part of the boundary.
Yeah, similar like
Okay.
you did with Arvin Lamont, just because we work with many residents in Fuller Acres, and I'm sure they'll ask if you have also similar information like you do specific to Arvin and Lamont.
Do we have a boundary for that?
I guess that's my question. You don't have just Arvin and Lamont numbers, unless I messed something up.
Mm-mm.
You have, they have numbers. Now it sounds like maybe if you want to hone in, but the numbers that they're sharing that they're calling Arvin Lamont is the number for the entire boundary. And I think what's confusing, this particular slide, they're just showing the boundary, which is the dotted line. And the only reason Lamont and Arvin, those are just the shadings of like those boundaries based on like like the boundaries of the actual city or the boundaries of the actual unincorporated area. But all of the numbers they've been sharing, correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, have included the entire boundary the whole time.
That's correct.
Okay, so then on slide 5, that's where you showed those numbers. Those numbers are also for all the AB 617 communities, like in that boundary.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so you have what you need?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Cesar?
Oh, sorry. I had the second question was whether or not it's appropriate for us to advocate for prioritization of the wells within the boundary in what Robert, I think, described.
That, of course, you all decide on how you want to conduct your advocacy, but I'll just say that we're very much looking forward to hearing from you on what you would like to see done. As I mentioned, and maybe this is a perfect thing for like a subcommittee follow on. We went really fast over the map of likely orphan wells that we have that we're considering for our state abandonment. We have a whole GIS tool that we could teach you how to use so you can zoom in and see what's near you. So that's available so that way you can familiarize yourself. But absolutely, we're gearing up to propose some projects, and we would love to hear from folks like you on, did we miss something?
Okay, thank you for answering all my questions and for clarifying.
Of course. Cesar?
Yeah, thank you for this. I think this is super helpful, and I have an infinite amount of questions. So I am definitely looking forward to the subcommittee and being able to like clarify and talk about these points a little bit more. So I appreciate this, and I think we can definitely help prioritize these wells, within the setback zone. So I think I'm not sure if this was mentioned or not, but this is the methane task force is totally separate from 617. So the 617 money isn't going to be used on your prioritization or focus on well abandonment, right?
Correct. Yeah, no, the funding that we're using for this was allocated last year from the general fund. And as Robert mentioned, the Biden Infrastructure Act put a ton of money for states to address orphan well problem nationwide. And California is getting a pretty big chunk of that. So that's large. And I don't want to also skip over, we also have industry funds that like the industry has to pay for idle well fees, and we can use some of that. And also they just generally, there's an amount of money we can take from oil and gas industry to pay for this. And we're absolutely prioritizing using that money first. But you're correct, Cesar, has no relation to the money used for 617, totally separate.
Awesome. And I think the last point is, I think the point that Gustavo brought up earlier about being able to, do some type of visible emissions evaluations is very helpful. And I think a bare bones version of that where we know, if you see anything above a certain opacity or, a certain darkness for the black smoke for a certain amount of time, make the call and, have just 2 or 3 situations where we can do that. Because I think we can do that for oil and gas safety, but also for like pesticide drift, and make that something that we can address in the subcommittee meeting. So I think that, that the training could be something along the lines of a very simple bare bones visible emissions evaluation where we can, say, if you ever see this smokestack with black smoke for more than 8 minutes, then make a report. That way we know not to, because I don't think we want to do it to send people into these areas to put themselves in danger.
Correct.
It's that these communities exist in these areas that put them in danger, and they can't help but drive past or walk past these areas. So when they do come in contact with these high levels of smoke that are of high opacity or of a certain wrinklement, I think letting them know what to report and when is helpful, because being able to tell the difference between vapor and smoke is very helpful. So if we have community members that know when to report something that looks like smoke, as opposed to wondering if it's just water vapor, would help bring a lot more effective local reports so that we know not to report something that's not vapor, or know to report something that is, an issue when previously we would have thought it was, normal operations.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's absolutely something we can take back and think about how best to do, in terms, again, like Gustavo mentioned, providing some basic, like what to look for, what are you listening for, and what do you do if those things happen. Gustavo?
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of comments. One is, Cesar is the one of those few that I was mentioning that learn how to identify those things because he went to several trainings just for that. But it will be great, the subcommittee will be great. I think this topic is very important for our community. And I think the more we know, the better, that we can help, and reduce our pollution. And the other one that you just mentioned, I believe it was Mrs. Smith, that you have monies from the industry. My organization, Center on Risk Governance in the Environment, we raised the question to the communities that we work here throughout the county, if we will advocate for those monies that the federal government approved for, to use tax dollars to deal with orphan wells. And the response from the people that we work with, the communities, they say, no, they said polluter pays. So if there are ways for us to support you, make the polluters, the industry pay, I think that will be something that we will be 100% behind in, making them accountable. They already have their gains and they need to take care of what they left behind.
Absolutely appreciate that. And, Gustavo, one of the things, as Robert mentioned, holding industry responsible is a key priority for us through this program. So one of the things that we're working really diligently to do is to make sure that for every project where we plan to do a state abandonment, that we exercise all of the tools that we have to try and identify someone and get money from them who's responsible for it. To be honest, we have some real limitations as a agency in terms of our authority to do that. But we do have some ability, if we identify an operator that is responsible for the wells and we can identify assets, we can work with the state controller's office to issue a lien against their property. So these are tools that we are taking very seriously and working very quickly to try to use. Because again, we're with you. Like, I'm a taxpayer. I want them to pay first before we start using state funds. And I think because it is such, a time set, it's important to also address these pressing, threats to our community. So where we can, we want to go after industry. And if we can't, we want to address the health issue.
Thank you for that, Courtney. I'm seeing one more hand raised from Jesus.
Thank you. No, yeah, I just wanted to second what Gustavo was saying. As a community member here, I think it's outrageous that, our tax dollars, and from what I saw earlier, $265 million of our tax dollars is going to go to plug up wells, while the industry responsible is only going to pay $5 million. Or has only put forward $5 million. I think it's outrageous. Because we all know they fully well can pay for it. I did have a couple of questions. For the companies that orphan these wells, do they see any penalties, or are they able to just purchase another well or purchase another property or get another permit? Well, that's my first question.
Great. I actually might invite my colleague, Matthew Baflabin. He's our enforcement chief. He can talk about the things that we do to to try and go after operators.
Yeah, I would just say, hello, everybody. I'm Matthew Baflabin. I'm the enforcement chief at CalGEM. And, there are limits to our authority. So that is one area where if an operator, if we use state funds to abandon a well, we can't prohibit them from, say, purchasing other wells. I think what typically happens in this realm, though, is that operators will change names or develop new partnerships or something like that. And then, yes, we can't hold those new partnerships responsible for the older operators. Where we can, like Courtney said, we're looking into issuing liens on assets at the operator that was identified where we can. But that is one of the areas that we're limited at CalGEM.
So then if the company has a history of abandoning wells, they can still get a permit for more wells.
No, I think, I'm sorry, real quick. So in a situation where we have an operator who like is not viable and not around, they're no longer. So we've at that point already issued a plug and abandonment order, and they have not complied. I'm sorry, I'm being too technical. We've issued an order directing them to like, hey, you need to plug in, you need to seal this well. And if they don't seal that well and they don't comply with our order, we have a little thing called a do not permit list, which means we don't give you any permits. So to prevent exactly, I think, what you're concerned around.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And then the other question I had, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I think from what I understand, the issue what happened in Bakersfield was due to some of the inspections not being in person. Can we have verified that all the inspections conducted around the potential abandoned wells in the Hilltop, Lamont, Arvin, Wheat Patch area have been investigated in person?
Absolutely. Rohit, do you want to take this?
Yeah. So, I just want to clarify that all the environmental inspections are done in person at the location. We cannot do environmental inspection remotely. There are some inspection which are not inspection, which are tests, which can be done using cameras or other technical, technology. But environmental inspection and follow-up incidents, all these will be in the past and in the now are done in person. So they are all in-person inspections.
Okay, perfect. And so then, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Amy, should we continue with our presentation?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Okay, Matt, you're up.
All right. Well, I want to thank Rohit and thank you for everybody. Once again, my name is Matthew Buffleben. I'm the enforcement chief at CalGEM. I'm here to discuss one component of the methane task force, the inspection and enforcement component. As you may know, last year, the governor's office tasked CARB and CalGEM to form a task force to identify and address methane leaks from oil infrastructure near communities. And recognizing that these leaks can pose threats to the community and to health and safety. Additionally, the governor directed the agencies to seek the input of community members in air districts and local government and to take action to address these leaks. So our three agencies, CalGEM, CARB, and the Air District, have agreed to work together to conduct joint inspections. This will have a lot of benefits for our agencies, including us sharing expertise, improving communications among our agencies, and improving our relationships with the community itself. Now, these joint inspections are in addition to the regular inspections that are conducted by each agency. And as for example, Rohit had mentioned earlier about the critical well inspections that CalGEM is going to be doing this year. Next slide, please. So I wanted to very briefly review the authorities for each agency so you can see where our authorities overlap. Now, CalGEM has broad authority over oil and gas operations to ensure wells and facilities are kept in a leak-free environment and safety and environmental requirements are followed. CARB has authority to ensure compliance with CARB's oil and gas methane regulation, which requires oil and gas operators, if they're not already subject to local air district rules, to add emission controls, replace high-emitting equipment, and to inspect for leaks and to repair them. Next slide, please. The air district has primary authority for stationary sources of pollution, including most oil and gas operations. The air district's authority includes requirements to obtain district permits, such as permits for vapor release and recovery equipment. The district also has an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding with CARB to enforce many aspects of CARB's regulation. Next slide. So our initial thoughts on joint inspection effort is to prioritize wells near your communities. What we're proposing to do is do joint inspections on all active and idle wells that are within 3,200 feet of the boundaries of Arvin and Lamont, which appears to be about 67 wells. These inspections will focus on the wells themselves, but may include other associated infrastructure like tanks and pressure vessels if they are near the wells. Next slide, please. Depending on our agency's capacity, there's other opportunities we would like to explore with the community. Some ideas for further joint inspection efforts include doing joint inspections on active and idle wells within 3,200 feet of the Schaffner community, inspecting a subset of active and idle wells around Bakersfield that are between 300 and 3,200 feet. So would be outside of the critical well inspections that the district already plans to do. Or another possibility is look at the remaining wells within Arvin, Lamont, and potentially Schaffner that aren't located or previously identified. And of course, we're really looking forward to discuss other community priorities, and we want feedback for you on as we develop our joint inspection plans. Next slide, please. Another item we want to discuss with you is our option for providing community members updates on our inspection results and any actions that are taken as a result of our inspections. These updates could be updates on our website at a regular interval, email updates, in-person meetings, or virtual meetings. Next slide, please. One of the main reasons we're here today is that we would like to receive your input and discuss our proposed efforts and your help in answering some questions that are key for us to have a successful methane task force effort. One of the questions is, do the wells we've identified for joint inspections capture the wells of concern for the residents? Are there other community priorities that we should consider? And then what are the best ways to communicate results from our inspections and receive feedback from you? Next slide. So some of our next steps is that CalGEM, CARB, and the air districts, our three agencies will continue meeting and developing our scope for this effort based on community input and consideration of our resource availability. We need to work together to establish joint inspection procedures and what equipment we're using during these inspections. And additionally, of course, we need to develop an approach with your input in providing community updates. So that finishes my portion of this presentation. If there's not any immediate questions on that, I'm going to pass back the presentation to Rohit.
Thank you, Matt. While the programs and the efforts we just outlined are designed to help identify and address methane leaks from the active, idle, and orphan wells, the results of these programs may take time, and they cannot always find leaks immediately. That is why we highly encourage members of the public who do have immediate concern about gas leaks in their community to dial 911. This includes, for instance, if you hear leaks, gas leaks coming from a well or attendance facilities. If you might see a gas bubbling up within the cellar of the well, or if you feel something like a seismic event that could have disrupted the oil and gas infrastructure, call 911 immediately. We encourage folks who may smell gas to not only dial 911, but also call their local gas utility. Since the natural gas is colorless and odorless, mercaptan is a foul-smelling gas that added to the natural gas used within homes to make it easier to. If community members smell gas, they should call their gas utility immediately, as it may indicate a leak in the home or within the natural gas distribution system. Lastly, if community members see black oil on the ground, they should report the spill to the Office of Spill Prevention and Response at the number provided on the slide. Next slide, please. So community members may also have concern about the impact of oil and gas production on their local air quality and public health, and as such can contact their local air district and public health department with those questions. Lastly, the community members may have a complaint about an operator or about oil and gas facilities in their community. CalGEM has set up a new dedicated website and process to receive and respond to community complaints. Community members can submit their concerns directly to the community concern at conservation.ca.gov. This email box is checked daily by the representatives within each district who can assist in addressing the issue. Over to you, Courtney.
All right, thanks. So all of this information, we'll package it up. I know this is a lot. We'll package up the contact information, who you call if you have concerns or a complaint, and we'll put all those resources that we've mentioned today together for you all. I just was wondering, Amy, how are we doing on time? Because I would love to go back to our discussion slide, and if we have time here, maybe create some space for folks to maybe share some of their thoughts on those discussion questions.
Thank you so much for that, because we were wondering if we were going to go back to those discussion points. This is the CSC's meeting, so I'd like to make sure that we take the direction from our community steering committee members. So we are 6 minutes over time, and just to refresh your memory, we have updates on the next steps for CERT progress, and then we have our general standing updates. I think what we could do is, if it's okay with the committee, we can send some of these updates via email and allow for at minimum 10 more minutes to discuss. How does that sound, committee? And then we would invite you all to come back to continue the conversation, also knowing that there'll likely be a subcommittee meeting. Sound good? Okay, got a thumbs up from a couple folks. Okay, so we'll, Courtney, I know 10 minutes is gonna feel like nothing because you have a lot of questions. So I'll help monitor for 10 minutes if we wanna just kind of go back to that. We have the slide here. So CSC members, if you all wanna start with your questions, do the wells identified for inspection capture wells of concern for residents?
Maybe just as a refresh, part of our normal inspection plan is we're committed to going out and inspecting wells that are within 300 feet of communities and environmentally sensitive areas. Those are those critical wells. And our highest priority for a joint inspection effort is to hit every active and idle well within 3,200 feet of your entire community boundary. So that's our highest priority. And so wanting to hear, it looks like Mario, your hand's up, if that sounds like the right approach, or if you have other concerns.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that that we had this meeting, because like you said, we need have to join together different, people who got different ideas and all that. And we need this because everybody could be accountable whatever takes place. I'm glad that we having more, like CARB and everybody getting together to try to fix up this problem. I'm glad for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Cesar?
I lost my train of thought. I'll be honest. I'm sorry. I'll raise my hand.
Okay, no worries. Any other thoughts on inspections? One thing too, I know Matt had laid out, as I mentioned, our highest Cesar remembered.
Yes, I did remember. Sorry. I know that as part of the methane rule that the sites had to create and turn in their own inspection plans. And I think just maybe doing some follow-up to see how good they are doing on keeping up with their own operator logs and leak detection and repair would help us, identify sites that may be causing chronic violations.
Great point. I think what we can do is, I think we have some folks on from CARB, but Cesar, why don't you let us circle up with colleagues at CARB and we can talk about maybe the best way to explore, providing information around operator logs and the leak detection and response plans. Sorry, leak detection and repair.
Can you repeat that again, Courtney, so we can note that for as an action item?
Yeah, we can connect with our colleagues at the California Air Resources Board and talk through an approach for providing information to the community on the leak detection and repair plans and inspection protocols associated with wells in these areas. Sorry, that was still a mouthful, wasn't it?
No, it's fine. I missed one word in there, so it's great. Thank you.
Great. One thing too, we're hoping to hear from you all on, as mentioned, like expanding our inspection effort to be more inclusive of wells in the Arvin Lamont community area is our highest priority. And we're also interested in hearing, as Rohit mentioned, there's so much to cover in the area, and we have like 23 folks. So we try the best that we can, but we sometimes have to make calls around what we're able to do with the resources we have. Given that, I don't know if folks had any reflections on what might be a nice next priority for us. As Matt mentioned, looking to do more inspections in the Shafter area is an option. Also, there are a lot of active and idle wells in Bakersfield proper, so we could do more there. So I don't know if anyone has any early thoughts.
I did want to jump in. Jasmine Martinez with the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition and also the current resident. And while kind of going through that prioritization community list that you all shared, I was curious to see where maybe like Lost Hills might land on that. And also was curious to see what subsets of Bakersfield you are currently interested in, or if that's something that you're still building out.
Rohit, do you want to talk a little bit about, do you have a sense off the top of your head of what the current inspection plan might hit in Lost Hills? To start with Jasmine's first point.
Yeah, if we have critical and environmental sensitive wells in Lost Hills, we'll definitely focus on those wells. Definitely, yeah. So we will conduct all the prioritization inspection in our jurisdiction, which comes under Central District. It's any critical well or environmental sensitive well within the Kern County. Doesn't matter where it lies. We will do the inspection on those wells. That's our priority.
So I think, just to tie it to your question, Jasmine, I think the current inspection plan is to make sure we hit wells everywhere that are within that 300 feet. If you are interested in being able to better visualize that, we could talk about how to give you more information around what the current inspection plan includes. And I think we're hoping to hear if, in addition to that, if it's looking within 3,200 feet of key areas might be a priority. Should we, is it focusing in Shafter? Any thoughts that folks have, we do welcome those. So I hope does that answer your question? I want to make sure.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, maybe as folks are thinking about that, I know Gustavo already had some, or perhaps it was Mario. I apologize, Mario. I think you had the idea of billboard. We would love to hear from you all on the best way. So in terms of like working together and frankly, I want to be accountable to you guys. So when we go out and do inspections and we find something or we don't find something, whatever the case is, being able to make sure we're clear on how we can best give you that information. And as we take action to address any issues that we find, that we can make sure you're provided that information and you're aware of what's happening. That's really important. And we are hoping to understand what's the best way or ways, plural, that we can do that. Matt laid out a couple of options. With the wells leaking last year, we did quite a lot of frequent website updates. So that way it was there and, we were able to update it oftentimes in real time. Having meetings, if you guys wanted to talk, if we had to set meeting and we can just tell you what we did, or we could do an email update. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on what would work best for you. Francisco. I think you might be muted.
Buenas tardes. Yo tengo unas preguntas porque aquí donde yo vivo tenemos un pozo que fue el que causó el accidente en el 2014 y ese pozo todavía sigue activo y está enfrente de la high school y huele mucho a gas todas las noches y en las mañanas. Y lo que yo estoy preocupado es porque antes venía Gustavo o venía otro César y nos ayudaban a ir a chequear que no hubiera fugas. Y varias veces encontramos muchas fugas ahí en ese pozo. Y ahora pues no sabemos si todavía siguen las fugas ahí o qué está pasando con ese pozo. Estoy muy contento que ustedes se están haciendo cargo para venir a monitorear esos pozos que están aquí entre las casas. Les agradezco mucho y estoy muy contento por este meeting y que nos apoyen para esto, para que vengan a chequear eso, si no tienen más fugas o qué es lo que está pasando con él. Muchas gracias.
Oh, thank you so much, Francisco. I think the well you might be referring to is outside near the Arvin High School. Just to clarify. I think so. So that will absolutely be
correctamente. Ahí está enfrente de la Arvin High School y la otra, la elementaria que está al lado también. Hay dos escuelas ahí. Y luego el colegio que viene también.
Great. If I'm not mistaken, I'm fairly certain that is part of our planned environmental inspection effort. Because as you pointed out, it's so near folks. We want to make sure we're out there and know what's going on. Gustavo?
I think about how to report back. There are several ways. I was thinking, I think on these monthly meetings, we have a lot of information to share, but it may be one way, but The other one is the emails that you mentioned. The county supervisor and the district that I'm in, he provide updates on community reports when community, report something, sidewalks or, something that is a concern of the community. They normally share, what reports they got, and then, what action they took. So, I think maybe, regular updates on by email can also help.
Great. That's very reasonable. Okay, thank you. Cesar?
Yeah, CCEJN is the steward of the IVID task force meeting and the reporting network here in Kern. And a lot of the regulators, including the 3 interagencies that were spoken about today, go to that meeting. So I think, definitely the IVID task force meeting, it's a monthly meeting, the first Tuesday of every month, is a good place to have some of the conversations around spill reports and how to do follow-ups. Just because that, that platform already exists, and I think it would be a good way to make less work for all of you, and also to do it in a place where we can have up-to-date, access to those spill reports at a community level.
Awesome. I love that idea. Yes, make it easier for you all if you're going to be there already, and us as well. Great idea. Very great.
Thank you so much, Courtney and team, for joining us tonight and getting this rich conversation started. As you can see, there's a lot of feedback and a lot of inequities that continue to need to be addressed within the boundary. So we look forward to you all returning and providing us some updates on implementation of some of the action items discussed tonight. And in addition, looking forward to your participation at the subcommittee meetings. I think at this time, we're going to go ahead and transition, if that's okay. Thank you so much. At this time, we are looking to transition us to wrap up and review some of the action items for today, and then we'll move to public comment. As noted earlier, per your request, we will be having our updates on our next step on CERT progress at the next meeting, and then the general standing updates will be sent via email. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to my colleague, Liz Lev, to walk us through some updates on our action items and wrap us up.
Thank you, Amy. So hopefully you see my screen with a slide that shows our next meeting date. So before we jump into the action items, just want to let you all know that our next CSC will be at our usual time at 5 p.m. on May 24th. And then we will have our usual agenda setting meeting on May 4th. And I will stop sharing for a moment as I pull up the action items. Can everyone read this, or should I zoom in? Looks good. So as I read through the action items, we do this every night. We invite members of the CSC to ask any clarifying questions or add any action item that our team might have missed, or provide any suggestions to clarify or modify anything that might have been mischaracterized. So please do feel free to unmute yourself to jump in at any point. The first action item we have is the Air District will follow up with the CSC on ways that the community can move forward with the paving projects that were identified by the CSC as priorities in Arvin. The next action item is CalGEM will develop a training or a guide that helps the community members be able to identify abandoned and potentially incompliant oil wells to report. The next item is CalGEM and the Air District will prepare a presentation for the Shafter AB 617 Community Steering Committee, as was requested tonight. Next is CalGEM will develop a document to share with the CSC that includes contact information for the CalGEM presenters, as well as clear directions for where to report those oil and gas incompliances that you might see in the community. Next, we have at the Oil and Gas Subcommittee meeting, CalGEM will show the CSC how to use their GIS tool to help identify priority wells in the community, as well as provide the CSC with information on how to visually assess those emissions. So it sounds like some folks in the CSC have already received a training, so hopefully more can get that education. Next, CalGEM and CARB will connect to talk through an approach for providing information to the CSC on operator inspection logs and leak detection repair plans within the community. And that's actually the last action item that we have from tonight, but I'll pause here and see if there's any questions, edits, or additions that anyone would like to make. I'm not seeing any or hearing any, so I think we can wrap up. And before we move to a public comment, we can move to some closing remarks. Would love to invite our community co-leads, Cesar and Bianca. I know you might be busy, but if both of you would like to share some closing remarks, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think this was a very, I think for me, a meeting with a lot of good news. I'm happy to see that wells are being prioritized near homes and houses and schools. So I'm happy for the next steps, and thank you to everyone that participated and helped, understand or help CalGEM and CARB understand how to better reach the community and work with us. So thank you everyone that participated, and thank you CalGEM for bringing a very easy to understand presentation.
Thank you. I think Bianca, you might still be busy, but we can move to having some closing remarks from the Air District.
I don't think I can say it much better than Cesar. I put it in the chat earlier. I heard a lot of different voices tonight. So I want to thank Mario for challenging everyone to speak up. I heard a lot of great feedback. And I also just want to give a huge thanks, not only to those that helped CalGEM prep for tonight, but then also to CalGEM themselves. I appreciated the approach. I heard a lot of different times of stopping, reminding ourselves to reiterate or redefine the words and the technical information. And I just really appreciate all of the interagency work and really the collaborative interagency and intercommunity work that went into this. So thank you all.
If it's okay, I just want to pipe in and just share with the community here that when we look statewide at CARB for all of the 617 communities, we have 19 in the program. There's 13 that have community emission reduction plans. And of the 13, there are 5 that have strategies in the SERPs that have to do with oil and gas. There are 2 with the Valley, and there are 3 in the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And your community is the first community that we have all 3 of us, CARB, Air District, and now CalGEM, come together to try to address that strategy. So just want to share that. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing, Deldy. That is very exciting, and this seems like we're capturing the spirit of what AB 617 is meant to be. Mario, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just still want to say, let's get that billboard like that. We can get more information to the people. And to be honest with you, we could make it work. We could make it work, and giving the people more information, we could fix up this problem. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights again and at all the past meetings. We've definitely noted that suggestion, and I think CalGEM and other agencies have heard that as well. So I think we can open it up to public comment and invite anyone to share any other final thoughts that they might have, questions, comments. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, hi everyone. Also just great to see a very productive and awesome dialogue tonight. But yeah, my name is Peter Nguyen. I'm a graduate student at UC Davis. You've probably seen emails with Jonathan London and I going around, but we're conducting a AB 617 study across the state, across all the now 19 communities. And we are conducting a survey. You probably received an email from the Air District of our survey that we're conducting right now. But yeah, we wanted to look at the successes and challenges and areas of improvement for AB 617 implementation. And it'd be great to hear all of your feedback from the CSC. And yeah, I'll post the link in the chat. If folks have any questions or comments, you can feel free to reach out to us. I know our contact info was in the email. I'll also post in the chat. But yeah, if you can take about 10 minutes of your time to give us some feedback, we appreciate all any comments and questions that you have. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. So it sounds like you will share that link in the chat. We do have a question. How long will that survey be open for? Some folks thought it had closed already.
Yeah, that's a great question. We just extended it. So the new deadline is till May 12th. So you should have at least a couple weeks to complete it. Yeah.
Thank you. Christine, go ahead.
Whoop, gotta unmute. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to share with the CSC community because I know that you're all active in Arvin and Lamont and the general Kern County area. Can I share my screen for 1 sec?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The city of Arvin, in collaboration with Grid Alternatives, is supporting a program to put solar on residential homes. The only requirement is that you be residing in a DAC in Kern County. In particular, for Arvin's program, it's Arvin, and I believe that even Lamont people may be eligible because it says it's Kern County and PG&E territory. So we're rolling out a program. We have flyers available in Spanish and English to support this program, and it will provide solar for residential homeowners on their rooftop. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to send me an email. I'm also putting this on social media. And then the second thing I wanted to share with the CSC is that the city of Arvin is working on a transformative climate community grant, and we are forming our own steering committee for comments and opinions about the types of programs and elements of the application that they would like to see in Arvin. We did have our first committee meeting on Monday. It's presently an informal committee, and we hope to expand that to become a formal committee in the future if they will support funding for developing a formal steering committee with stipends. And so that is also, that is also available in Spanish and English. My apologies. And we will be hosting another workshop next month. So I just wanted to put that out there. If anybody's interested in participating, please feel free to send me an email or contact me, and I'll get you the information that you need. Thank you for helping to clean the air in Arvin.
Thank you, Christine. Maybe that could be included with the updates that the Air District will send out to the CSC after the meeting. Gustavo, go ahead.
Very quick comment. I think we heard that an organization sent a comment letter to CARB. I think suggesting to dismantle the CSCs, the steering committees. Just want to express that, you know, I think especially in those that I'm participating in chapter and Arvin, Lamont, I think for us these have been working, and you know, just to express that I think for us it's been a good experience. So if you are considering that, you will need our feedback. But here I believe we the residents are having, you know, that decision making power to not 100% guide where we are going, but to you know, have a meaningful influence to decide, you know, where we are going. So just wanted to mention that for CARB staff, that here I think we are okay. If other places are not working, that's something to consider. But here I think, at least for the 2 projects that I'm participating, I think you know, it's not perfect, but it's good enough to keep it going.
It's really great to hear. Thank you, Gustavo.
Hey, I'll go to that meeting anytime.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm not seeing any more hands raised, and I don't think I see anything else in the chat. Are there any final thoughts or comments? Yeah, Deldy, go ahead. Okay, I saw you unmute, but okay. Well, if there are no other comments, then we can close our meeting for tonight. So thank you so much to everybody for being here, all of the agency partners and community residents. We really appreciate all of the work and energy you're putting in, and it's definitely team effort, as we have seen tonight. So just want to wish you all a really good night, and thank you again. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.